Hello everyone, RetroCon here. Today, we will be looking at European history told through the lens of Chinese game developer company Azure Flame Studio. Banner of the Maids is a game that painstakingly captures the history of France during the late 1700s. The amount of history I have learned from this game is staggering, and I was left questioning everything that I knew. Could it be that perhaps the French Revolution didn't play out as we were told in our history books? For example, did you know that King Louis XVI and his wife, Marie Antoinette, managed to broker a truce with the revolutionaries and remain the constitutional monarch? Yeah. Did you also know that in the 18th century, the people of France spoke perfect Chinese Mandarin? That's pretty damn crazy. And what about this fun fact? They also employed women with special powers into the military, and these women also served as commanding officers. I'll tell you what, I sure as hell didn't know any of that. And who are we to doubt the People's Republic of China? This game got me thinking. It opened my mind's eye. What possible reason could there be for historians to attempt to hide such knowledge from the masses? What other secrets lay dormant in the annals of history? What artifacts and occult science could the elite be hiding from us? And more importantly, why? But I digress. What really matters here is that you have a fun and historically accurate game with a cast of beautiful, well-endowed women in uniform. The game plays from the perspective of Pauline Bonaparte, sister of Napoleon Bonaparte, as she fights through several encounters against bandits, Prussians, Austrians, and worst of all, Anglos. Banner of the Maids is a turn-based waifus of war simulator. Alright, so what exactly do you think you're going to be jumping into playing this game? The year is 1796. The French have revolted against their benevolent king and soon came to realize what fools they were for trying to overthrow royalty selected from the heavens. Overthrowing a king for his wealth and status? What do you expect a man selected from divinity to be? A down-to-earth commoner? By the grace of the king and his infinite wisdom, he decides to broker a truce with the peasants, aiding them in their revolution against the crown by allowing them to change the government. However, you are left with three factions vying for control of Paris. The first is the Feuillants, led by the commander-in-chief of the army, Marquis de Lafayette. These traitorous generals and military commanders attempt to usurp the mighty and deserved authority of the crown by implementing a constitutional monarch. Next, we have the Royalists. The king's declaration of supporting the revolution has rightfully won over many common folks and nobles outside Paris. This faction is nothing but faithfully loyal to the king. Lastly, we have the Jacobins, comprised of people such as your brother, Napoleon Bonaparte, who wish to let the common folk decide their own fate, which is of course to remain loyal to the crown. However, various insidious factions sought to take advantage of the fragile state France currently finds itself in. You play through the perspective of Pauline Bonaparte, an experienced military officer and an extreme nationalist who values the lives of her fellow Frenchmen, willing to do anything to save a single soul while having no issues killing thousands of men for the sake of France. Your job is to guide her and her warband throughout Europe to crush foreign and domestic enemies of the state in grueling wars of attrition. Now, I must warn you that this is not a game for the intellectually handicapped. This is a game for the cunning and tactical armchair generals. Whether you win or lose will come down to your ability to suffer the smallest number of casualties while simultaneously slaughtering the enemies in droves. Along the way, you'll unlock new characters, upgrade your troops, find new gear, and encounter interesting challenges that you must overcome in order to progress your military slaughter. Visuals. There is plenty of top-tier art in this game. Sprite art is used primarily to draw out the stages in which the battles will take place. A great artistic choice that lets us see just how insignificant all these dying people are, while emphasizing the importance of the generals. There's a reason only the leaders of armies are remembered, and not the thousands who perished under that leader. The vast amount of political intrigue involving the factions of France and its ally Italy, fighting against the insidious forces of Austrians, Prussians, and British means you'll have plenty of art of gorgeous women in military uniforms. More than enough to satisfy those with a particular taste in order and tradition. Exactly the level of quality you'd expect from the citizens of the PRC. You've also got a few men in the mix. Gameplay. Banner of the Maid is a turn-based tactics game that plays out like most games of this genre. Matches take place on dynamic, tile-based maps. You've got weather events like torrid rains and freezing winters that serve only to crush the morale of your troops. And if it wasn't for your ability to literally brainwash men into fighting to the bitter end, they'd probably question why they would ever be willing to die for the sake of a king. There's also nothing quite like sustaining heavy casualties and barely surviving an encounter, only to realize that's just the first wave. There are also bushes and other elements scattered throughout the map. Defeating the British by performing some guerrilla warfare on them evokes a certain passion in me. When starting a match, you are given the option to go through a deploy stage. You're given as much time as you need to swap out as many men as you can and replace them with women. Personally, I like to deploy Cosette and Adelaide into every battle I play. They're pretty solid units, and that helps with my lack of critical thinking skills. Outside of that, you can customize your characters with different armaments and trinkets, purchased at stores or scrounged on the battlefield. It's well known that giving only your generals something like a shield will grant your entire army immunity against bullets. As you fight through the stages, your characters will level up and get stronger. Eventually, they can be promoted into new units using rare and expensive medallions. You can also return to town and purchase gear from ungrateful and scheming merchants that would rather make a quick buck than give your army the resources it needs to defend the realm. Music. Look, maybe you have a good access to Adderall, but unless you enjoy listening to the same couple of tracks or so for hours on end, I think you'll probably end up muting this game. Is Banner of the Maid the game for you? Depends. Do you like to watch competent women dressed in uniform? Do you enjoy watching men get dominated by women? Do you like to learn about the history that isn't being told? Do you enjoy mercilessly slaughtering the combined forces of the British, Austrians, and Prussians? Are you big-brained enough to enjoy puzzles where you can only win if you place the right units at the right place at the right time? Let me tell you something. If you said yes to any of this, then this is probably a game worth trying out. What do I rate this game? 1 thumbs up out of 2 thumbs. Go ahead and give it a purchase. It's a game that took me a dozen or so hours to beat on the hardest difficulty and had plenty of thoughtful moments. Alright everyone, have a beautiful day and remember, long live the king.
Entends-tu le vol noir des corbeaux sur nos plaines? Ami, entends-tu ces cris sourds du pays qu'on enchaîne? Ohé, partisans, ouvriers et paysans, c'est l'alarme. Ce soir, et des larmes. Montez de la mine, descendez des collines, camarades. Sortez de la paille, les fusils, la mitraille. mitraille les grenades. Oh, et les tueurs à la balle et au couteau, tu évites. Oh, et saboteur, attention à ton fardeau, dynamite. C'est nous qui brisons les barreaux des prisons pour nos frères. La haine à nos trousses et la faim qui nous pousse la misère. Il y a des pays où les gens creux des lits font des rêves. Ici, nous vois-tu, nous on marche et nous on tue, nous on crève. Ici, chacun sait ce qu'il veut, ce qu'il fait quand il passe. Ami, si tu tombes, un ami sort de l'ombre à ta place. Demain, du sang noir séchera au grand soleil sur les routes.